The bar was half-lit, the kind of place where stories lived in the corners, faded photos of soldiers on the wall, folded flags in glass cases, and a jukebox quietly humming a Johnny Cash song no one had played in hours. Jake Turner sat alone at the counter, fingers wrapped around a sweating glass of Coke. He didn't drink anymore, not since Afghanistan. His eyes, a tired blue, scanned the bottles behind the bar without really seeing them. Most nights, he came here just to forget, to stop hearing the echoes of rotor blades and radio static, to stop remembering who didn't make it home. He was a single dad now. His world had shrunk from the chaos of war to the quiet routine of making school lunches and reading bedtime stories to his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. She was the reason he kept going, the reason he hadn't given up when life got too heavy. That night, a group of Navy SEALs walked in, young, loud, full of that unstoppable energy that Jake used to have. One of them, tall and broad-shouldered, with a freshly shaved haircut, noticed Jake sitting alone. "Mind if I sit here?" he asked. Jake shrugged. "Free country." The SEAL grinned, sat down, and ordered a beer. "You Army?" Jake nodded slowly. "Used to be." "101st Airborne?" The SEAL whistled. "Respect, man. I just got back from deployment myself. Team Bravo." He paused, studying Jake's worn face. "You look like someone who's seen his share of fire." Jake smiled faintly. "Something like that." They talked a bit. About the service, the sand, the silence that follows it. The SEAL introduced himself as Mason. He was 29, still serving, and had that look of someone chasing a purpose, even when it hurt. Then Mason leaned in. "What was your call sign?" Jake froze for a moment. He hadn't said it out loud in years. That name felt buried, part of another life. But something about Mason's sincerity made him answer. "Viper 1, he said quietly. Mason's smile vanished. His hand holding the beer trembled, and then the glass slipped, crashing to the floor. Foam spilled across his boots. Jake blinked. "You all right, son?" Mason's eyes were wide, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're Viper 1, from Operation Iron Dagger." Jake frowned. "How the hell do you know that?" Mason swallowed hard. "Because, sir, my brother was in that convoy." "Corporal Daniel Brooks? You pulled him out when the Humvee was hit." The air went still. The jukebox clicked. The hum of conversation faded. Jake's chest tightened. He remembered that night, smoke, flames, the sound of gunfire. He dragged 3 men out of the burning wreck before passing out. Only 2 had survived. Mason's eyes were glassy now. "My brother never made it home. But before he died, he wrote me a letter. He said, 'If you ever meet Viper 1, tell him thank you for giving me a chance to say goodbye.'" Jake's throat closed. His eyes flicked down to the bar, to the reflections of old war photos in the counter's shine. "Your brother, he was brave. I just did what anyone would have done." "No," Mason said firmly. "You did what most wouldn't. My family has prayed for years to find you, to thank you. You gave us peace." The bartender quietly slid them new drinks, sensing the moment. Jake didn't touch his. His hands were trembling now, not from fear, but from something deeper. Mason reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded photograph. It was old, edges worn. A young Marine smiling, arms around his little brother in front of a pickup truck. Mason placed it gently on the bar. "That's us. He called you a ghost. Said you disappeared before the medevac landed." The Jake stared at the picture for a long time, blinking back the sting in his eyes. "I didn't want the medals. I just wanted to go home." Mason nodded, voice soft. "You did more than that. You helped someone else get home, even if just long enough to say goodbye." For a while they sat in silence, the kind of silence that says everything words can't. Then Mason spoke again, this time with a grin, trying to push through the emotion. "You still live around here?" "Yeah," Jake said. "Got a little girl. She keeps me in line." "Good," Mason smiled. "Because my team's doing a charity event next weekend for veteran families. You should come. Bring her. She deserves to know her dad's a hero." Jake chuckled softly. "She thinks I'm just a tired old dad who burns pancakes." "Then she's got a lot to learn," Mason said warmly. The next weekend, Jake showed up, Lily clutching his hand, wearing a pink jacket 2 sizes too big. The event was packed with veterans, families, and flags fluttering in the autumn wind. When Mason spotted them, he waved them over, grinning like he'd found lost family. He introduced Jake to everyone, calling him Viper 1, the man who saved his brother's life. Jake tried to protest, but Mason wouldn't hear it. As the national anthem played, Jake stood with his daughter by his side. For the first time in years, he didn't feel invisible. He felt seen. Later that day, Mason knelt down to Lily's level and handed her a small, silver dog tag on a chain. It read, "Your dad's a real hero," Mason said. Lily looked up at her father with wide eyes. "Daddy, you didn't tell me you were Viper 1. Jake smiled through tears. "Wes, I forgot to mention it." That night, as they drove home, Lily fell asleep in the back seat, dog tag clutched in her tiny hand. Jake looked at her through the rearview mirror and whispered to himself, "Maybe it's time to stop hiding." He realized then that kindness, sacrifice, and quiet courage, those were the things that built the world, one act at a time. And sometimes it takes a stranger to remind you that you mattered all along. Jake didn't sleep much that night. The memory of Mason's face, that stunned, grateful expression when he heard Viper 1, replayed over and over in his mind. For years, Jake had buried that part of his life, convincing himself that what he did didn't matter. But now, hearing that his actions had given a family closure, it was like a wound finally began to heal. He sat on his porch long after Lily had gone to bed, the small silver dog tag glinting under the porch light. He turned it over in his hand. Reading the words again, he felt the weight of it, not just the metal, but the meaning. For years, Jake had lived quietly, fixing cars at the local repair shop, volunteering sometimes at the school, pretending that the past was just a dream. But now, he understood something he hadn't before. People like him weren't meant to disappear. They were meant to guide others, to show that even after the darkest nights, dawn still comes. The following weekend, Mason stopped by Jake's house. This time he wasn't wearing his uniform, just jeans, a hoodie, and that easy smile. "Mind if I come in?" he asked. Jake grinned. "You brought coffee, so yeah, come on." They sat on the porch watching Lily chase bubbles in the yard. Mason looked around, nodding in quiet admiration. "She looks just like her mom, huh?" Jake's smile faded a little. "Yeah, Sarah passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. She was tougher than I ever was." Mason's tone softened. "You've been through a lot, man." Jake shrugged. "We all have. I just stopped talking about it." Mason took a sip of his coffee, then set the cup down. "You know, there's a group I started for vets who are trying to find purpose again. We meet once a month. No uniforms, no formal talk. Just people helping each other heal. I think you should come." Jake hesitated, not sure I'd fit in anymore. Mason smiled knowingly. "You'd be surprised who you'll find in that room." After a pause, Jake nodded. "All right, maybe I'll stop by." The first meeting was in a small community hall, folding chairs, coffee urns, and a whiteboard with the words, "No rank, no judgment." Jake stepped in quietly. The room was filled with men and women of every age, Marines, Army, Air Force, Navy, some with prosthetic limbs, others with visible scars, and a few like him carrying invisible ones. Mason introduced him. "Everyone, this is Jake Turner, but most of you might know him by another name. Viper 1? A few heads turned. A couple of older vets exchanged looks of recognition. One of them, a Marine in his 60s, stood up and saluted. "Sir, I heard about you. Iron Dagger. Damn honor to meet you." Jake felt his chest tighten again, that mix of humility and disbelief. "I was just doing my job," he said softly. The Marine smiled. "That's what heroes always say." As the meeting went on, people shared their stories, about loss, survival, finding peace. Jake listened, then slowly he began to talk too. About Afghanistan, about Sarah, about raising Lily alone, about the nights he couldn't sleep and the mornings he didn't want to wake up.